Welcome back to DallasDivasDerby.com. In the final segment of our interview with Morgan and Brittany, we discussed the infamous Dream season's impact on Katherine Wentworth's legacy, and where Morgan feels the character would be today if she were to resurface. We can only hope. I want to thank Morgan and Brittany again for taking the time to sit down with us. It was truly a delight to meet her and talk with her about her career. We hope you'll enjoy this final installment of our discussion. And stay tuned to Dallas Divas Derby for new updates and features as we continue to tell the stories of the women who made Dallas one of television's most iconic series. Enjoy. So let's get back to kind of the chronology here. So we've dealt with the Swan Song episode, and the fact that you're now responsible for killing Bobby for all intents and purposes.
I know. When I die, that's what it's going to say.
Exactly, right. Were there other, before we leave that season, were there other abandoned storylines for Katherine that ever came up in those season 6, 7, 8? That anyone, was there anything that you were like, oh, I wish that would have happened, or we were going to go there but we didn't? Or
I didn't know where they were.
Okay.
See, that was the thing with the show, is they never really told us where they were going to go with it.
Sure.
We really didn't know. I mean, I don't know whether Larry knew. Larry might have known more than most of us, but we really didn't. I mean, I would have loved to have seen Katherine, do more with Wentworth, Tool and Die, more with the Cliff Barnes deal, that kind of thing. I would have liked that. I would love to have seen where that would have gone, because there was such a rivalry between the two of them, and she had such a problem with him taking her father's company.
Yes.
That she would never get over that.
Right.
And so I always, in the back of my mind, thought, she's going to get him. Someday, she's going to get him. I mean, Cliff Barnes is going to pay. But it didn't pay off while I was on the show. And it kind of, the thing that kind of bothered me was that my storyline is kind of hanging out there. You don't really know where she is or what happened to her or what, because it kind of all got into a mishmash of, well, what? Where is she? So that kind of bothered me in a way. And when fans ask me that, they go, well, whatever happened to her? And I have no answer for them, because I don't know. I don't know.
Well, that brings me to the Dream and season 10, which Katherine was dead.
Right.
You were not a part of. I think the most controversial, decision that ever affected Dallas, and it's infamous for better or worse.
I know.
I wonder what your thoughts are on that. I think you see a real change after the Dream.
Definitely.
And I think
definitely.
I don't know all the intricacies of the decisions going into why it was thought necessary to do the Dream, in terms of if it was ratings driven or whatever. But what are your thoughts on the Dream? And I mean, because it directly affects your character.
Yeah, I know. I know. Well, I was absolutely shocked when I got the phone call, Lenny Katzman. This is a year later. I've gone my merry way, whatever, and Lenny calls me and he says, "Hey, Morgan, it's Lenny." And I went, "Lenny, how are you doing?" And he goes, "I'm doing good. How are you?" And I said, I'm great. And he goes, "So I got a proposition for you." And I said, "What is it?" And he said, "How would you like to come back to Dallas?" And I said, "Lenny, don't you remember I'm dead? I don't see how I can." And he said, "What if you're not?" I said, "How is that possible? What do you mean, what if I'm not?" And he said, "Well, we've kind of concocted this situation. Patrick wants to come back to the show. And Larry and Patrick and I, we kind of been throwing out these storyline things about how we can get him back in the show that, will kind of make sense, but whatever." And then he kind of laid it out for me. And I said, "But what do you do? What do you do about all the characters that you brought in, and you had a funeral on Knots Landing?" And I said, "Well, how do you explain all that?" And he said, "Well, I don't know, but Patrick wants to come back, and the fans love him, and we'll just, maybe that didn't happen. Maybe that's just kind of like a lost season, and it didn't really happen." And I said, "Well, listen, if you need me and you need to tie up a storyline, I'm here, you know, I'm here for you, whatever you need. And that's when they brought me back in. I never really liked that idea. I think that it kind of, I don't know, I talked to a lot of fans and they felt a little insulted. They did. And I totally understand where they're coming from. They said, you know, you just can't mess with us like that. And I said, yeah, I totally agree with you. Well, you know?
One of the things that I felt and have shared with, I've heard from other fans too, is that some of the writing, and I think I might have misspoke earlier, so I just want to get my seasons correct. Season 9, I think, was the dream season. And then, yes, season 9 was the dream season. And one of the I think some of the strongest writing of that era about grief and death.
Yeah.
I don't know whether you've watched those episodes.
I didn't.
It just, you know, it seems like almost a third of that year, various characters process Bobby's death differently, and it was really strong writing, especially for the female characters. And I think when I hear fans say what you just said that you hear them say about being disappointed, or I think there's some great performances and really strong writing for women in that year, and the men too. There's some great, the idea of Ray and Donna adopting their child is a beautiful story. The hearing impaired. There's just all these tender, beautiful stories, and then they're gone. And I think that's
exactly.
a little bit.
I think people didn't want to be messed with.
Yeah.
I think that was the whole thing, is that don't do this to me and get me involved and get me committed and then just pull it all away and, oh no, we were just kidding. You know, it's like many fans said that. And I don't know that Dallas, the original show, ever really fully regained its footing after that. I don't know that it ever did. I mean, I kind of sort of got out of watching it too much. But I don't know. I mean, I hear a lot. I talk to a lot of people that.
Well, one of the premises for our website, the Dallas Divas Derby, was the idea that you know, we love the Ewing men. We love the Ewing story. It's not that we don't like the men.
Right.
That story just seems to be better documented, both in the show and since archivally. It's been told a little bit more often. And one thing that I noticed was that after the dream, we get into a year when Patrick is back, and Victoria and Patrick are back together. But by the end of the next season, Victoria's leaving, and Susan Howard is leaving, and within a year later, Priscilla Presley has left. And it always seemed to me that you know, the device of bringing Bobby back, fine, arguably do that, you know, explore that.
Yeah.
But the women then the writing for the women seemed to fall back, and it seemed to be that the thrust of the show, they thought that they had to focus around the Ewing brothers, that was the core, and that some of the other supporting characters, the writing kind of fell by the wayside. I don't know if that played into anyone's decisions.
You know, there was at that time, I think, there was a big shakeup in writers, and there was, like, a lot of people came and went, and we lost some of our original people, and new people had new ideas, and it kind of got scattered in a way. I think, didn't Charlene leave around that time too?
Yes, she left soon thereafter.
Yeah, she did too. And it's like everybody just kind of did, you know, I don't know what really happened.
Charlene left in Swan Song.
Charlene she left fairly early.
She left when Patrick left.
And I don't know. I don't know what the reasoning was behind all of that. You know, I don't even think she did.
Yeah.
I think it kind of blindsided her as well, because she was an original. I mean, she's an original.
Right.
You know?
Absolutely.
So I don't really know.
And it seemed to me too that this is a little bit removed, but I mean, the death of Patrick Duffy, the Swan Song episode, was handled, I think. The writing was amazing. The death was so definitive, both yours and his.
Right.
The grief was palpable.
Exactly.
It was great. And then 2 years later, when Pam leaves, as these women are leaving, their characters are sort of isolated. They're either taking careers that send them away, or they get married and move away.
Yeah, you don't really know.
Even the reaction to Pam's accident, when you compare it to the reaction to Bobby's accident, when you took out Bobby, he got a lot more sympathy than
yes,
when
he did.
You know,
when I took out Pam.
I agree. You know, And that I've heard other people talk about that too, and I
Yeah.
think that's always been curious to me, and that's part of the impulse about why we want to sit down with you and you know, some of the other actresses. But going to season 11, this is your last stint on Dallas.
Right.
It's just a couple episodes. They call you and say Victoria's leaving.
Yeah.
And
And I went, don't tell me I'm not going to do this too. That was the, I'm not going to answer the phone anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So one thing I noticed is I think it's just 2 episodes in the final, the way they were finally put together.
Yeah.
The first episode suggests that Catherine's back and she's going to do something malevolent to Pam. You know, there's that.
Yep.
There's that line that you quoted earlier, the hospital.
Sleep, little sister.
Yes, sleep, little sister, sleep. Sleep on, little sister, sleep on. Yes. Which is great. You know,
Yeah, that's a Joan Crawford line, isn't it?
So over the top. It's great.
I know it
and
is.
Poor Pam is bandaged
I know,
like a mummy.
I know. I forget who the girl was under those bandages. I can't remember.
That must have been interesting for her.
Yeah, really.
But the first episode really makes it look like Catherine's going to take, either she's going to kill her, she's going to take her away. Catherine is going to deal with
something.
Pam.
Yes.
Then in the next episode, it starts to get foggier. You have a showdown with Bobby. He catches you in the hospital, and you say that you're reformed, and you kind of plead your case.
That I'm nice again.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
And he has no time for that.
That's right.
Tells you to hit the road, I think. And you leave, and then either within the next 2 or 3 episodes, the body double that is Pam at that point makes her exit. But what I found interesting was they called you in to kind of do this thing with Pam. And I noticed that I think it's the 3rd or 4th episode of the season, maybe the 5th. The climactic scene is in South Fork, and it's Bobby and JR and Cliff and the gentleman whose name is escaping me, but he's the CEO of Wentworth Industries. And it's this big expository scene. It's supposed to be the definitive scene of like, this is what happened to Pam. And they ask him at point blank range, was Katherine Wentworth responsible for this? And he says, no, I don't even know what you're talking about. It was me and my assistant or this private nurse.
Right.
And, so, but it's weird because watching it, I felt like I would have loved what you just did. I would have loved just a little bit of a tinge of like.
But I think that might have been what was intended.
What was intended. It's it's played very straight, and it comes
I know. It doesn't, see, you need that little, that's what Larry Hagman was so great at, because you need that little, wait a minute, what did he say?
Right.
You're right.
The way that scene is played is really leaves it up in the air, and I think, as we were talking about earlier, the way that Catherine would deliver some of those lines, or JR would open the door to maybe there's, maybe Parker Ellison's not telling the truth. Maybe Katherine Wentworth was involved in this.
Right.
I think maybe the way the scene was played has left the fans a little confused. I think that may be left, and maybe I'm wondering if that's why you get some of the questions about what happened, or.
I do, because they did build it up. They did build it up, and it was like, oh, she's going to do something, and then it never really had a payoff. And then you're right, with his speech at the end, it wasn't a double-edged speech.
No.
It wasn't that guy's lying, you know, and could have been played that way, and would have given the audience something to think about, even though maybe the payoff's way down the line, who knows, but it's still out there.
Right.
So I don't know why they made the choices they did.
Sure.
Yeah.
I do love, prior to that speech, that kind of conclusion speech to that storyline, in one of the earlier scenes, they do reference that a woman in a big hat.
Yes.
Took her away.
Yes.
I love that.
Exactly.
Exactly. That opens the door.
And then you have to remember, Catherine was loaded with money.
Yep.
She was also, she could tell anybody what to do. I mean, basically.
Absolutely.
So, you just don't know.
She had a lot of freedom.
She
could have gone anywhere.
That's right.
So do you ever speculate now? I mean, it's probably even more fun to speculate now that Dallas has made its comeback. But do you ever, you say that people ask you, where would Catherine be today?
They do.
And you were saying earlier, you think that she was kind of a swindler, sort of a, who would she have
Oh, she was a con artist, manipulator. I mean, I wouldn't put it past her to have either had JR's child and now is sending JR's child back to mess with all of them. Or, I mean, it could be, who knows? I mean, it could be somebody like Rebecca, who is put back in the fold to get the information to mess up everything. But I do believe that at some point, she would get back at Cliff Barnes. Some way, somehow, she's going to get even with Cliff Barnes for taking or getting a part of her daddy's company. And she wants to seek revenge on JR. So there's a lot of unfinished business with Katherine. And I think she has enough power and enough money and enough influence to have been able to get out of a lot of the problems that she
the legal problems.
The legal problems. I mean, some people can get away with murder, and
right.
Hey. So it's possible, and I don't know. I just think that that for her to send an offspring would be a really good storyline.
Well, there's an interesting theory floating around the internet that has gained fire as the new Dallas has started. There, in and of itself, the theory of Katherine and JR having had a child, because if we do accept that the dream season was a dream,
right?
In the season before that, Katherine had slept with JR in order to get to Bobby.
That's right.
She shot Bobby, and then she's soon after that gone.
Gone. That's right.
So number one, we know that the potential is there for them to have a child. And then there's this red herring or some kind of a hint that the new show's giving us with the name Rebecca, which of course, Rebecca plays heavily into, the name Rebecca plays heavily into the Barnes clan.
Exactly.
Rebecca was your mother, Priscilla Pointer, Cliff and Pam's mother as well.
Right.
Late in the show, it is heavily suggested, if not outright revealed, that Afton and Cliff had a daughter, Pamela Rebecca. And some people have speculated that, the new Rebecca may be her.
Right.
But it seems logical, unless it's a complete red herring, that a Rebecca is somehow going to be part Barnes.
The way that they're structuring her character in with the email and doing the double dealing, Christopher getting him, where she wants him, and then, I mean, it's kind of like Katherine's MO, So you kind of look at it like, whoa, wait a minute, her mom could be orchestrating this, or that could be her DNA, that she's just like her mother.
Well, especially if it's JR and Katherine's DNA.
Exactly. So, there's a lot of ways they could go with it, but I'm curious to see if they do ever, mention Katherine or anything like that.
Did bells go off in your head when the email storyline came up?
Big time.
Just to reiterate.
Big time, yes.
Yeah.
I went, whoa, wait a minute, that's just like the letter.
Right, just to reiterate, the letter that Katherine sent to Pam to break Pam and Bobby up, and now an email's been sent to break up Christopher and Elena. And I think a lot of fans, bells went off in their heads.
Yeah,
I think,
it's like, whoa, wait a minute.
So everyone's like, did she learn from her mother, maybe?
I know.
Would you entertain an invitation if they asked you to bring Katherine back?
Well, I've been out of the acting end of it for a long time and really gone other ways in my life. It would be great fun to do. It really would. It would tie up the story.
Sure.
It would end something that, that I've always wondered how it would end. I'd love to see everybody again. It was a great experience for me. I love doing the show. I have great memories of it. It's one of the, it's one of the highlights of my career to be a part of that show. I probably would, when it comes right down to it, I'd have to, sit down with my husband and go, well, what do you think?
Exactly.
And where they wanted to take her and what they wanted to do. But it's, it would be interesting.
Well, there's also, of course, a big push to get Victoria to reappear on the show. There's a huge fan support for that. And if we're to believe that Katherine had anything to do with Pamela's leaving, there's always the possibility that Katherine could have something to do with Pamela's return,
That's
or their returns could be related. Who knows?
Yeah.
Do you think it's too far-fetched to think that Katherine could have been rehabilitated or reconciled with Pam? Is that just too far?
No. I think after she slapped me in the bedroom that day, I think that was about it.
Okay.
I think that sort of ended the sisterly love there.
Right.
I think it would be a great storyline if she pretended.
Right.
If she did. If
Right.
she pretended, and it just that whole personality change, but yet the audience would think, don't, Pam, don't fall for it again, because Pam is so sweet and kind.
Right.
She would buy it. She'd believe it. And that'd be pretty interesting.
Yeah, I personally love to see you both back. I think the dynamic would be interesting.
It would be very interesting.
Would you be, of all the potential tacks that Katherine could take, if you could, have your way with the whole thing, would you find it more fun to continue Katherine's legacy as a villain, or to see her go in a completely new direction 20 years later?
I would like her to continue on.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the reason JR's character works, and that's one of the big reasons this show the revamp is such a huge success, because people love to hate him. I think if you changed Katherine's character, people would still have in the back of their mind, what is she going to do?
Right.
Because it's so ingrained in everyone that she is this kind of person, and you're just not going to change your spots, Right. So I would want to see her continue on, and I'd love to see the battles between JR as they're older.
Oh, yes.
They're older, and they're the same person, but they're different. And life experience and what they could do now, I think, would be really interesting.
Well, going back to your earlier point about, you think some of Katherine's backstory is about fear and insecurity.
Oh, yeah.
It could be really interesting to see an older Katherine who maybe is not driven so much by fear and insecurity, but is come into her own a little bit.
Right.
That could be really compelling.
Smarter, wiser. I think she would be a different person, but she would still be the kind of manipulator that she was, but possibly on the same level as a J.R. Ewing. Because, he's doing a terrific job. J.R. is just as bad as he ever was.
Larry lights the screen up.
He does. He does. And he's as bad as he ever was. And I think he really needs an adversary that's going to stand up.
Do you have any thoughts around, well, first of all, Bobby has a new wife, Anne.
Right.
I'm sure that Katherine would, may not be too happy about that.
Yeah, but Anne, she can be taken out. Trust me, I've been watching Anne. She can be taken out in a heartbeat. Okay.
I love that.
Yeah.
Good to know. Katherine could take care of it.
Oh, she could take care of it. Yeah. But they need to flesh out these characters, and they need to give them the dimension. They do. They can't just play it one note. You got to have the different colors that's going to keep the audience on the edge of their seat and going, whoa, wait a minute. Like have Christopher do something that's completely out of the ordinary for his character, and don't make John Ross just a blatantly, just bad guy.
We need to see a softer side.
We need to see some vulnerability there where somebody can get in there and get him somehow.
Yes.
Not just his dad, not just JR going after him,
right.
But you need to have him show some chink in the armor, And that's what gives the characters something that the public is going to grasp onto. That's what you got to do.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, it's just a rehash of the same old thing.
Well, and I think, too, what you saw in a lot of villains, I think you even saw this sometimes with Katherine, probably most likely when she was with Bobby, because that's who she truly wanted to be with,
right.
And was probably most vulnerable around.
Right, oh yeah.
But with JR, with most of the villains, you got these moments of humanity.
Yes.
They could do boatloads of terrible things to people.
Yeah.
But you knew that JR loved his son. You knew that JR loved his mama. There were these things that you knew that when push came to shove, they would stand up and do
That's
the right
right.
thing.
That's
Like
right.
he might be an overall bad guy, but somewhere there
was
was
something there.
yeah. And I think I agree with you. And
But that's what the viewing audience wants to hold on to. You know, they do. They want to see those different dimensions in the characters, and that's what makes them human and real. And they're not just a cardboard figure. So. Yeah, well, I wish them well with it. I really do, and I think as they go on, they're going to find more ways to do it, and they'll find, interesting little, things they can do.
Well, y'all certainly laid a great foundation for them. There are so many potentials for children and grandchildren and past relationships that are unresolved.
I know. Wonder whatever happened to Jenna's daughter.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Charlie, was it?
Yes.
Yeah.
She had it. Well, and she also had Bobby's biological son.
That's right. I wonder what happened to them.
And then she went to Europe. So
Interesting.
There's all these children
scattered all over the place. Well, listen, I can't thank you enough for Dallas Divas Derby, because all my fans in Texas that were wanting to voting for me and all that, I just really appreciate it, and I'm so happy you did that.
Oh, thank you. You're very welcome. It was a joy to work on, and we saw the numbers for Katherine. We saw these huge spikes every time Katherine was up for a vote. And
the woman they love to hate,
yes,
right?
Yes, they want you around. They definitely love it,
funny.
Katherine. So, and that was a joy. It was a real fun project to work on, because we got to see that there was all this fan support out there. For you and the other women on the show.
Absolutely.
And we're so happy that you sat down with us today.
I'm happy
it's
to.
It's a real pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you again so much. It's just been a real pleasure.
Yeah, it's been wonderful. Thank you.